here's our game plan. First, we'll tackle that classic pills versus therapy debate. Then we're going to take a look inside the brain to see what depression actually looks like from a biological perspective. After that, we'll get into a really cool new tool called rTMS. And finally, we'll see how precision is totally reshaping the future of treatment.
All right, let's dive right in with a question that has pretty much defined depression treatment for the last 40 years or so. We've all heard this, right? It frames the whole problem as this choice between biology and psychology. But what if that choice itself is the wrong way to think about it? What if the real answer lies somewhere else entirely? So on one side, you've got your pharmacotherapy, medication like SSRIs that are designed to tweak the brain's chemistry. And on the other side, you have psychotherapy, talk therapy, which is all about building new mental strategies and coping skills. For years, the big question in the medical world was, okay, which one of these is actually better? Well, a huge 2006 meta-analysis, which is basically a study of studies where they pool together tons of data, gave us some really eye-opening numbers. If you just look at remission rates, which means how many people got better in the short term, they look pretty similar. Both are in the same ballpark. But the real story, the thing that jumps off the page, is that bottom line, the relapse rate.
And this is the number that really tells the story. A staggering 57% of patients who are treated with medication alone relapsed after their treatment ended. That is more than double the rate for psychotherapy. This massive gap told researchers something really, really clearly. We need a more durable, a more long-lasting solution.
So, that's the big question, right? Why is relapse so common? To figure that out, science had to change its focus, moving from just the symptoms to the source itself, the brain.
And this is where everything started to change. Thanks to modern brain imaging technology, we could finally see that depression has a physical footprint. It actually corresponds to real, observable changes in the brain's activity. It's not just a feeling. It's a different functional state of the brain.
A massive study just this year, in 2024, really drove this point home. What scientists found was that in people with a history of depression, the brain's structure was mostly the same. But the way it operated, its function, how different parts of the brain were talking to each other, that was consistently different. For the first time, we basically had a functional map of depression.
And that, of course, led to this really revolutionary question. If we can see the exact circuits that are acting up, why don't we just try to fix them directly at the source?
Well, that very question led to a whole new class of treatments called neuromodulation. And probably the best known of these is a technology called rTMS.
Okay, so what is rTMS? The easiest way to think about it is like physical therapy for your brain circuits. Seriously. It's not surgery, it's not a pill that goes through your whole body. It uses these really focused magnetic fields from outside your head to gently stimulate and kind of wake up the specific areas of the brain that are known to be underactive in depression. So the natural question is, how does it stack up against the medications we're used to? Well, the safety data is pretty compelling. Because rTMS is targeted to just one spot in the brain, it completely avoids all those systemic side effects that pills can cause. But the most dramatic difference is in the risk of serious problems.
I mean, just look at this chart. The contrast is really stark. The risk of seizure from an FDA-cleared rTMS session is about 1 in 60,000. For some common antidepressants, that risk can be more than 25 times higher. It's just not even in the same league when it comes to safety. And because of this combo of being effective and incredibly safe, a lot of researchers now think this technology could be a total game changer. They see it as a paradigm shift. That means it's not just another option for when nothing else works. It could become a go-to first-line treatment. But the innovation doesn't stop there. The real future here isn't just about having a cool new tool. It's about learning how to use it with unbelievable precision. Because it turns out that, just like with any medicine, the dose really matters. Too little stimulation might not do anything, but is there a point where more isn't better? Scientists are now literally mapping out the precise dosage needed to get the absolute best results.
And this isn't guesswork. We're not just throwing darts at a board here. A really important 2024 meta-analysis is starting to reveal what's called the dose-response curve for brain stimulation. Think of it like a chart that shows exactly how much improvement you get for a certain amount of treatment. It's all about finding that perfect recipe.
And what they're finding is that there's a definite sweet spot. For one group of patients, for example, the absolute best results came from a very specific number of magnetic pulses. Any fewer, and the treatment wasn't as strong. Any more, and you didn't really get any extra benefit.
We're moving away from a one-size-fits-all model to an exact, optimized dose.
So when you look at this whole journey on a timeline, you can really see the incredible progress. We've gone from this broad philosophical debate to actually understanding the brain's mechanics, to now developing tools that can work on those mechanics with data-driven precision.
All right, so let's boil all this down. What are the big takeaways here? First, those traditional therapies have real limits, especially when it comes to relapse. Second, we know now that depression isn't just a mood, it's a measurable, functional state of the brain. Third, we have new tools like rTMS that can work on that state directly and, importantly, very safely. And finally, the future is all about precision, finding the exact right dose for each person's unique brain.
Which leaves us with a really powerful final thought. As our tools get sharper and our understanding of the brain gets deeper, we might be witnessing the very beginning of a new standard of care for mental health, one that's targeted, personalized, and hopefully more effective than anything we've had before.